Hi, and welcome to day 4 of the Accenture Data and AI Week. We hope your journey so far this week has been full of insights, knowledge sharing, and a lot of learning, as it has been for me. Today, we're going to talk about the essential skills and strategies for success in the rapidly evolving world and field of artificial intelligence, including navigating ethical challenges and leveraging AI to enhance your professional growth. So join us and stay with us as we explore how to stay ahead in this dynamic landscape. Because as AI grows smarter, we need to grow sharper. I'm Govindra Jaitiraj, a financial journalist and the editor of The Core, a business news and insights publication, as well as a host of various podcasts. Today's conversations focus on the capabilities that will shape the AI-powered workforce. So whether you're a consultant, engineer, or domain expert, how do you stay relevant in an AI-first world? And that's the question everybody is asking. In our first segment today, we explore how consultants are using AI not just to solve problems, but to imagine entirely new ways of working. With me today is Suresh Nanduru, who will share how human insight and Gen AI are becoming a powerful combination in the consulting domain. Suresh leads the Accenture Strategy and Consulting Global Network team in India, driving priorities and modernizing consulting practices through AI and asset-driven transformation. He also oversees the platforms and technology strategy and advisory teams across India, Argentina, Malaysia, and the Philippines. He's been working for over 20 years in technology and has held various roles across multiple geographies, and his extensive experience spans high accountability roles in delivery, client account management, portfolio P&L, and large-scale growth initiatives. He has a bachelor's degree in engineering from IIT Madras and an MBA from the IIM Kolkata, or Indian Institute of Management, Kolkata. Suresh, thank you so much for joining us. And let's start off. So, speaking of IIMs, if you were to be passing out of IIM today, or for those who do pass out today, what are the things that you would be looking for, and how is it so different from the time that you left?
Hi, Govind. First of all, thank you for the welcome. It's great to be here. Yes, I mean, if I just compare to my times to now, I mean, back then, I guess probably the biggest differentiator is the level of disruption that you see, right? I mean, I guess I passed out from IIM Calcutta in 1999. Back then, I guess the biggest disruption around was internet, right? And early e-commerce, I would say, right? Um, I mean, for any successful career, you obviously need to be curious, you need to be learning, you need to be understanding, what the market that you operate in, the firm you work for, and all of that stuff. But I guess what's changed now is the speed at which the disruption's coming, right? If I just look at the last 10 years, the number of things I personally had to learn, right? If I just look at it in the forget last 10 years, even the last 5 years, if I just look at what I had to learn, and if I were to compare that with what I had to learn over the previous 20 years, I mean, it's day and night, right? So I guess for people who are, graduating from universities at this point of time, I guess the only thing that you can be sure of is there's a whole lot of change and disruption coming your way. So it's fantastic that you come with everything that you learned from in your universities, but we're actually looking forward to you learning more as you work, with Accenture, or as you kind of build your career. I guess that's probably the one thing they should be ready for.
So, right, and you talked about disruption. So, would you say that the graduates of today, whether it's engineering or management, are conceptually ready for a world of disruption before we come to what that disruption specifically is and what are the skills it needs?
I mean, I'm a bit of an optimist, right? So I would like to think they are, right? If I look at, I mean, if I just look at a country like India, how well, I mean, the country has adapted to the various technologies that have come of it. I mean, just look at UPI. I mean, India is definitely one of the top countries in, building AI talent and, people, wanting to learn. In Accenture, we also believe that, and which is also why you see a lot of focus in India as well, is we believe that as a culture, and also, our graduates are coming out, are actually more amenable to learning, right? So we think they're ready. It's always, of course, it's up to each individual to kind of embrace that part of it. But I think the level of disruption that they're already embracing, I think should set them up well.
So let me come to the tangible and the intangible. So if you let's talk about the tangible first. And
Mhm.
let's say in your case, you went to engineering college and a top one at that, and you went to a management institute, another top one at that. What is the combination that you look for today, which you feel prepares people for the tangible part, and has that changed?
We, I mean, if you go back then, I mean, obviously, some of those colleges that you referred to, and I mean, that kind of pedigree was there. One of the things we also look for now is what some specialized skills as well. If you look at the work that we do for Accenture song, right? Everything around marketing transformation or everything around the customer journey. For example, we're looking at creative skills. And therefore, we go to campuses that are actually specializing in that, who kind of do the design thinking kind of an approach and are creative in that nature. So we kind of go to some specialized colleges as well. So I think it is what you would call a traditional house of talent that comes through, right? But it's also specific colleges. And now I'm talking about entry level, right? And
Sure.
entry level graduates. You're talking about specialized universities. As a design is one such example. Advertising is another example. Communication is another one. Um, so we look at that. And also from an experience perspective, we are also looking at people who've done this kind of work in a different industry. We're not necessarily looking to fill with in lateral, for example, not necessarily looking at taking people who are in a similar, already in consulting. No, we look at industry, we look at specialized skills and see how we can adapt them to the consulting world as well. Because when we kind of look at our projects and we do that, we need a mix of all of these skills, right? So every consultant is not cut the same way, right? So it's the mix that makes a difference now.
So you've talked about, a design thinking, you've talked about curiosity, and there's also being bold because the solutions that you have to come up in a world that is being disrupted are not perhaps what could have been applied even a year ago,
Yes.
leave alone a decade ago. So give us an illustration of where you see this playing out and how it would play out if it were to.
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few areas where we do see this bold thinking, right? Necessary. I mean, one of the things we talk about is, clients no longer want scripted playbooks. They're not looking at, tuning 2 to 3 KPIs and see how do I get the best into an industry benchmark or whatever. One of the areas, I can refer to is what we call process reinvention, right? So with advent of AI, Gen AI in particular, and agentic, one of the things that our clients are asking for is how will this change the way we operate, right? Now, it's not like they have a target state that they have in mind, but they're fundamentally, I mean, one of our examples, one of the things one of our Middle Eastern clients, I mean, when we were talking with the chief digital officer, he actually took us to his supply chain team and said, I mean, look, they're all great people, but essentially they spend most of their time on SAP. Is that the right thing for us to be doing, or shouldn't this be uh, a lot better than that? And that's when we started the whole conversations around autonomous supply chain, right? And bringing that thinking into it. Now, when you have a conversation like that, right, and when you're looking at process reinvention, you can, in a very simplistic way, you can look at it as I have a set of 10 steps. Do I automate 3 out of that with AI, right? And that would be a very productivity oriented conversation. Whereas if you kind of look at it as a process hack and look at this as can the ones that are automated, can that be done asynchronously, right? For example, that would be a completely different take on how that process would be run end to end. Nobody knows the answer. The question is we want our consultants to push that boundary on what is the art of possible. Put those bold ideas in front of the client and test their appetite, right? It's that dialogue of what is the art of possible, and the answer could be somewhere in between or whatever that is, right? or the client can choose to be conservative, or they can put. Some of our clients have actually said, "I want the right extreme, right? I really want to push the boundaries." So in all of those things, it's our imagination, it's the boldness with which we can place the ideas. It's also understanding the client culture, the client's appetite, and placing the right ideas on the table. But it's these bold ideas, and you will not get those ideas if you yourself are not, up to date with what's happening around you. And I think that's the difference that we look at.
Right. So in the case of this Middle Eastern client, you said that they took you through, or rather to the supply chain team and said that, okay, let's do something. In general, what do companies want from you and why do they want it? And then I guess comes the question of whether the consultant is ready to come up with some dramatic solution or a bold solution, as the case might be.
That's a good question. So one of the things we talk within the firm is, are we talking AI when the client gives you an AI problem, right? Or are we looking at AI as a possible solution when client talks about a business problem, right? And I think that is possibly where we at least we would like to think we are a bit different, right? So clients come to us because given the scale of what we do, given what we do across consulting, technology, and operations, our ability to drive what we call total enterprise reinvention, which is essentially changing the way how a company works, right? How they are today to what they are tomorrow, and not just from an advisory, but actually all the way to the execution. Given that track record, when we have these conversations with our clients on what is the art of possible and what do we do, they expect a lot from us. They expect us to tell them the experience of what we've got from across all of these clients and suggest what that is. And they not just want that, they also want that change delivered fast, right? Because simply can't afford a 3 or a 5 year project, and just to see that at the end of 5 years I've learned something new already, right? Therefore it's about our investment into assets and how we are able to, which by the way many of them are AI powered right now. How do we bring those AI powered assets to deliver the transformation faster? I think that I would like to think is one of the key reasons why I think the clients kind of look at us for a lot of these reinvention journeys.
And when you're sitting around the room, who do clients look to for solutions? Do they look at the older consultants? Do they want to hear from the younger people? And then, of course, how ready are the younger people to, come up with ideas which are maybe a little, let's say, out of the box?
I mean, it's a healthy mix. I mean, my experience over what, about 25 odd years in this field is I think client will immediately turn and talk to the person who seems most relevant to the conversation, right? So I can't get into a supply chain conversation only speaking supply chain, or I can't get in talking only AI. So it's obviously the person with the best narrative, the ability to tell what we call storytelling, to bring that into the mix and demonstrate that what we are advising or our thought process that we are planning to build for them, how that is relevant to them. So when that happens, our experience generally is clients obviously look at whoever is the one that resonated, right? It doesn't matter whether it's young or old. And I don't think they kind of stereotype us into, one or the other. But I think it's a question of where we've got the right mix.
Right, and you talked about storytelling, and that's I'm guessing is another aspect which is critical in this day and age. So, if I were to flip it around and see it from the perspective of this young consultant who could be just out of college, or it could be maybe moved in from another role somewhere, maybe from industry, how do they prepare themselves for some of these aspects? So boldness, I guess, is a little more intangible amongst the list of intangibles. But let's talk about curiosity for a moment, because that, I guess, is the bedrock of many of the things that follow. Firstly, how do you know whether someone has the right element of curiosity? Secondly, how do I imbibe a certain level of curiosity or raise my level of curiosity beyond what it is?
Yeah. I mean, as you can imagine, a firm of our size, we are constantly launching assets, frameworks, and all of that stuff. Some of the things we kind of look at is, have you adopted it? It's one thing to say, I am curious, I did this 3, 4 training programs, I've attended a couple of sessions. The true test of it is how well you've kind of adopted it in the way you do your work day to day. I mean, we all talk about Microsoft Copilot, right? I mean,
Mm.
do we really use that, right? Do you do your decks, for example? Do you leverage Microsoft Copilot? The research that you do for a lot of consulting projects, are you leveraging some of the assets that Accenture has built for that? So I think one is, of course, we kind of look at and we obviously track a lot of these things is the level of how curious are you in terms of your ability to go attend those training programs and take those training programs, but also your ability to adopt in the day-to-day work. I think that's sort of, but at the end of the day, I mean, you can always do this because it's a thing you have to do, right? But I mean, the truly curious learners make their presence felt in their conversations. And you just know it, right? You can't sort of put a formula behind it or something. You simply know it, people just know it. And I think that is, and I think in people-based business like consulting, you just know.
Right, and one is the talking to clients and who are in any case asking your advice or looking to you to solve some very challenging disruption environments or situations. The other is to do that within your own organization and using AI effectively to empower yourself. Your advice to someone who is starting out or at the early part of their career in the consulting space. I mean, how could they be using AI as we know it today?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I think you should embrace what's coming your way, right? You should absolutely embrace what's coming. I think the first and the biggest attitude change has got to be, is this for me or is this for someone else? Or is this something I have to know because I've been asked to know? Right. So I think that is probably the biggest mindset change that needs to happen. Um, because I think most organizations, and I'm sure Accenture is not alone in this, most organizations look to, ask their employees to learn a lot of these things. The second thing is, do you know the various use cases where you can embrace this technology and use it? It doesn't have to be, like that autonomous supply chain example that I gave you. It doesn't have to be a story of, can I use it to do, I am on a project right now, I want to do some research. Can I use it there? Right? I'm doing an assessment for a particular client. Can I think of using that tool there? it's that it's that element of thinking to say that, can I embrace some of these things into my day-to-day work in those little use cases, right? One of the things we are asked as leaders is, well, all of you are talking about Gen AI and everything, where do you use it, right? And I think it's a great question to answer, because that tells you it is how you use it on a day-to-day basis, right? And that automatically brings about the change that we think we should.
Right, and I'm going to ask you that question too in a second, Suresh. Or what do you use in this context? So, if I come from, let's say, a non-premier business school or a management institute, do I still have a chance to make it into this, world of consulting in general and AI consulting in specific? And if so, what do I need to do?
I mean, I'm a big believer that this is a place for everyone, right? This is a place for everyone. It's a place of expertise. Obviously, pedigree helps. It gives you a great starting point. There's no question about that, right? But at the end of the day, what matters for a successful career is expertise, right? So anybody with the right expertise in AI or their chosen field, and if that's relevant to us, absolutely will have. I mean, we had a lot of people from industry, people with automotive skills, people with retail skills, people with life sciences skills, right? So we hire a lot of those. We hire people from advertising agencies. So we have a big spread of people that we hire from, not necessarily people who have gone exactly to these 10 colleges or those 20 MBA institutions. It's not that way at all. So we kind of look to see how we can get all of those right people in. I think the key word in my opinion is expertise, right? And that's probably what matters.
Right, and expertise is something you build as you put all of these things together. So, last question to you, Suresh. So, what's your AI partner companion tool that you're using, or at least you feel is empowering you in your own journey right now?
Yeah, I'll give a couple of things. I mean, one, obviously at work, I mean, we have a set of tools. So Accenture Reinvention Console, I kind of look at that every time I kind of need to have a client conversation. I kind of look at our repository. I kind of, a bunch of Gen AI assistants that give me what I need to know before I have that conversations. Where else have I done? Where have we done this before? We also have things like Amethyst, which is another tool that we have to do a lot of these things. On the personal side, when I'm at home, uh, I kind of lean a lot more on ChatGPT and Google Gemini, and it's the way I do search now. I mean, till about a year back or so, I would probably do my search on Google. Now I see myself doing most of my search on one of these assistants because I get and what's happened because of that is I've realized I'm beginning to learn a lot more. Right, I'm beginning to learn a lot more because I'm not worried about having to go through click 10 links to know what I want to know, and I get to know. So that's how I'm kind of using it.
Right, Suresh, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights, including from your own experience. If I were to sum up very quickly, I think there is a lot of opportunity to be the consultant at the cutting edge as you help companies, enterprises, prepare for or manage disruption, which is really hitting at you every moment now. So, but the question is, how are you, or how can you be better prepared? I mean, can you be more curious? Are you bold enough? Do you listen? Do you learn? And do you have the ability to story tell? Because if you can't tell stories, then how do you convince people on the next step that they have to take in their journey? Thank you once again, Suresh, for sharing with us your thoughts, telling us about how all of this comes together at a time like this, and your own examples. Clearly, you're using technology at work and at home, and that, in a way, it's tough to separate the two, because if you're not using it, some element of it in your life, then it's difficult to sort of do the same application or the creative application at work. And I think that really brings it together. So thank you once again for joining me.
Yeah, it was great to have this conversation, Govind. Appreciate this.
Thank you. Well, I hope you've got your, AI tools ready, or you've started figuring out what to use. So let's move on to an interesting panel discussion now and level up with Gen AI and data skills for the AI-powered world. Today, we will explore how generative AI and data-driven technologies are reshaping industries and job roles. We'll discuss critical skills like AI literacy, data fluency, and ethical AI, and examine how businesses, academia, and policymakers can bridge the AI skills gap. We'll also look at how AI is transforming careers and share strategies for staying ahead in the AI revolution. So joining me today to do all of that are Professor Jitamitra Das, or JD as he's known. He's a member of the Board of Governors and a professor in the decision sciences area at the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore. Dr. Desai obtained his PhD from the Industrial and Systems Engineering Department at Virginia Tech, and his BTech is from Indian Institute of Technology, or IIT Madras. He has also authored several referred journal articles and book chapters, and is actively involved in the analytics community. He's also received several research awards, including the Best Paper Award, Operations Research Track, and Best Paper Award, Modeling and Simulation Track at the IISc Annual Conference in the United States. We're also joined by Shailesh Chaphekar, Managing Director and Lead for Data and AI for APAC at Accenture Advanced Technology Centers in India. He has over 26 years of experience and has spearheaded extensive data-driven transformation programs on a global scale. He's a key contributor to data and AI thought leadership at Accenture, specializing in preparing data for AI applications. And finally, Anvesha Ray, Talent Strategist, Data and AI, Accenture Advanced Technology Centers in India. She has 16 years of experience at Accenture and extensive expertise in talent management, and has contributed to talent transformation efforts for several emerging technologies, including cloud and data and AI. And I'm sure you want to hear from her especially as you chart your own path and careers forward. So thank you all for joining me. And let me ask by asking all of you to speak for a few minutes to start with on how you see this topic or theme from your vantage point. So the theme is level up with Gen AI and data skills for the AI powered world. So let me start off with you, Professor Desai.
Yeah, thank you so much. First and foremost, thanks to Accenture for inviting me to be on the panel. Um, I think the industry, no matter what it is, has been impacted by Gen AI, right? And education, I think, is no different. I mean, there are multiple ways in which we are engaging with the tool and with the technology as we speak, both at a classroom level, at a faculty level, and at an institutional level. So, for example, I mean, there are many examples that I can give you of how Gen AI is shaping our classroom. So, one way, for example, of making students ready is we have a policy in place where we've embraced technology. I mean, that is fundamentally the world in which our students are going to live in anyways, right? I mean, like, so we are going to, whether we like it or not, that's the world that they're going to be living in. So we might as well embrace the technology in the classrooms. We've done programs. For example, IIM Bangalore, which is my home institution, has been at the pioneering endeavor of like teaching business analytics and artificial intelligence. We've run certificate programs in both of them for a number of years, for 15 years and so on. But more importantly, I think at a broader scale, and I speak this primarily from a higher education point of view, not from primary school education. If you look at even management programs in the world, they've been moving towards more STEM-based education, right? They've been inculcating more and more data-driven insights and so on. I was speaking with one of the CTOs of one of the companies, and he told me an interesting story of how startup founders in rural India don't get funded very easily because they don't speak the English language very well. In a similar context, if you don't know data well, I think you're going to hinder yourself in terms of your career path, right? Having access to data, learning insights, and being able to use the latest technology, particularly generative AI, I think is a very key and important step. Right? I'll stop here. I'll let the other panelists take over.
Right. Thanks for that. But I recall an example that you shared earlier about how you actually counter check whether people are using AI and in a way try and disincentivize people and to not use AI and incentivize them to think more creatively.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea there was like when we do case studies, what's happening is that students end up inputting that case study into Gen AI and getting answers to the questions that we are asking them, right? Now that I think in some ways defeats the creative purpose of the classroom. MBA education is a lot of it is based on individualism, right? I mean, we want to bring your individual thoughts. Now, if everybody feeds this into a generative AI tool and then brings up the same, regurgitates the same answers, then where is that creativity going through? Right. So to do this, what we've done is along with our cases nowadays, the case output also has the generative AI output with it. So now, they have to think of something that's a little more, a little beyond that. So we are forcing them in some ways to come up with what I call a basket of choices that managers have to debate upon before they take a decision. And I think in that sense, generative AI is a great tool, right? I mean, it gives you a much broader basket of tools.
Right.
I mean, it comes up with things that even I can't think of sometimes, right? I mean, and that's fantastic in some ways.
Right, and if you're doing that in college, then I'm assuming, and as it should be, as you enter the workforce, you're also in a way ready to start thinking and not sort of defaulting to a ChatGPT solution. So anyway, Shailesh, it's over to you.
Yeah, hi, and thanks, Govind. See, I think today AI has been real than I ever saw it before. And thanks to Gen AI. The way I see it is it's an assistive technology. It is going to supercharge what you're able to do. Now, irrespective whether you're a business operator, whether you're a data professional, or you're doing anything, or even a radiologist, right? It is going to supercharge. And I think that's where it is very important for all of us to really embrace AI as a plus one. When I look at it from the profession that I come in, doing more data and AI work, I also see that there's a kind of circularity, right? Like while I get data ready for AI, because good data will lead to good AI, it is the same AI that I can actually use to prepare my data well. And and that's the loop. So I think for all data AI professionals who are watching this, I think it's important that you kind of learn both, because that's going to stay with you, as you tread through your journey.
Right. And could you give us an illustration? The circular loop, as you call it, or, is an interesting way to look at how we will use AI in sort of input and output, if I'm getting that, if I'm using the application,
Yeah.
or rather I'm applying it correctly. What's a good example in what you've encountered, Shailesh?
All right. So let's take an example. Maybe the best use of AI and data, and even some knowledge about the business's banking. Fraud detection in banking. Now, if you have to understand if there's a fraud, right? You need to train your AI on understanding what the data looks like and what are the patterns. But at the same time, you could use that same data to first AI to actually give you what are the patterns that it sees in the data first. And then depending on the patterns that really lead to a fraud is what you could train it on. So that's really that circularity, right? So you use AI to first find patterns, and then you pick the patterns that are of most relevance to detect fraud. And that's one example. And I think most of our banking industry is now really embracing AI, just not for fraud, but for many other things. So yeah, there are quite of examples like that.
So it's interesting, in some of the conversations that we've been having around this, Shailesh, fraud has not come up. Not that it's not important, but people have been talking more about, consumer-facing analytics, intelligence, insights, and so on. Is there a reason for that, or you feel that maybe fraud is something that is still sort of lagging, or is it? I don't know.
I think I don't think it's lagging. In fact, in my experience that I've seen, there's a lot of experimentation that's going on. It's probably people are not really talking about saying, hey, I'm really using AI for detecting fraud.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of experiments happening, and that area itself is complex, right? So to be able to just say, oh, I've done it, by the time you do it, there is something else that comes up, right? And so maybe not people are not talking about it, but definitely it's getting used in my view.
Thanks, Shailesh. Anvesha, it's over to you.
Thanks, Govind. Interesting perspectives from Professor Desai, and of course from Shailesh here from the business standpoint. I think myself being in the talent management side of it, it's a very exciting point to see AI really is very democratic in nature. It's no longer esoteric with solutions being available to a select few, but AI is really more about a cultural transformation. We are already in the midst of it. Which means that suiting up for talent, looking at how we catch up to have relevant talent, fulfill our business needs. It's not really going to be about keeping pace with what's coming in the future, but really going ahead in the midst of it and shaping it as we go. Which means that traditionally, while we were very constrained in the earlier years to really maybe look at talent from, let's say, a traditional computer science or a B.Tech background. But it has opened doors for us, which means with the whole democratic side of AI being, we have access to wider talent. It allows people to really experience far more, career choices than we traditionally were able to. So I think we are in a great time period, so to say, right now, where people across have access to a lot of careers choices that they would like to have and progress on.
So since I'm the one of the few non-engineers in this conversation, so let me ask, what's the skill that you feel is, which you think is important, which let's say was not there earlier or taken for granted, but has become quite important in the age of AI?
I think one of those skills that we don't often talk about, but it's implied very naturally, is really our sense of, or our ability to define the problem. Which means that earlier, with all of the tech disruptions that we have spoken about, agility was something that we have always spoken about. But agility sort of springs forth a view, which means that you have to embrace the latest technology. But it is not just that, right? AI is happening to us, for us, and we are in the midst of it, which means, therefore, that we have to take into account a lot of the softer skills as well, which we may not have, focused on very intentionally in the past. So, which means that, more than agility, of course, agility is implied, but adaptability, resilience, creativity. I think, as Professor Desai was alluding to it, no longer being very straitjacketed to figure out, okay, this is the technical solution and this is the path. by all means use it as a soundboard, but don't let go of the maybe the neuroplasticity of your brain to kind of continuously be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn, and really be resilient to the changes that are coming, because we are shaping the changes. And of course, the other big important part, we have all the power. AI is giving us all the power, but we must wield it with integrity. So ethics and integrity is another big skill that we don't speak often enough, but it's going to be very important.
Right. And Professor Desai, let me come back to you. So the three or four things that Anvesha talked about, the adaptability, the resilience, the agility, how much of that is coming together in your classrooms? And of course, bearing in mind that I am Bangalore is a postgraduate course, and obviously will not be the same as what a lot of the talent who are perhaps watching this will be going through. But nevertheless, it would be useful to understand.
Yeah, I mean, there's one particular example that I like to give, all the time, which is like the example of horse riding. And, for 4,000 years, horse riding was a very important skill in transportation for the human race. But the moment the automobile came into existence, that particular skill just completely disappeared, right? So, I think we are in a time where Gen AI is going to sort of take away a lot of the tasks that we do. In my own classroom, for example, I teach 2 foundational courses in data science. A lot of the statistical analysis that we used to use Excel for example, nowadays I don't even stop to do those calculations in Excel. I have a Gen AI tool that I'm using. I speak to it, and as I speak, in a conversationalist tone, those calculations are just rapidly showing up on the PowerPoint slide, and so there's a sort of a natural flow that sort of seems to be coming in. And these are sort of the tools that my students are going to pick up, right? I mean, like they are engaging with the tool, making it faster. So a lot of research that I do as well, my code writing is becoming faster. The number of simulations that we can run is increasing, and therefore, in some ways, what is I think really, really fascinating is that I have more time to spend on the business problems, right? Rather than doing task writing with respect to code and so on, I am now able to sort of look at the business problem perhaps with a little more 360-degree point of view, and be able to get insights that I never could get before, right? I mean, so that I think that's a really critical skill to have.
So, but if you were to look at a blend, Professor, between, let's say, knowing the very core foundational skills, let's say in mathematics, or how to add something, versus, let's say, using tools, because I'm guessing somewhere that the temptation to skip the core foundational learning is high, and you can obviously do it, but could there be, dangers down the line?
Absolutely. I mean, there are a number of examples where, whether it's an ethical question, there's a lot of bias that's built into generative AI models. So those ethical problems come up when you submit reports that don't have the foundational knowledge. Shailesh talked about this really nice example of fraud. So we use a lot of statistical models to be able to figure out what is fraud, right? I mean, so Gen AI turns out then to be a really good starting tool, but then we use that output from Gen AI as the starting point or a beginning point, and then we feed that into slightly more complicated statistical and optimization models, and that sort of refines the solution a lot faster than perhaps starting from scratch, right? I mean, at the end of the day, to be able to figure out fraud is a great example because the number of instances of fraud is less than 0.1%, right? So for a statistical model to be able to figure that out takes a lot of computational time and effort. And so if you have generative AI doing a bit of the work for you and sort of getting you off onto a warm start, then you can sort of converge these algorithms a lot faster, which I think is terrific.
Right, Shailesh, so our theme today is skills for the AI-powered world, and how do you sort of level up with Gen AI and data? So fraud is a sort of exciting way to approach it because it allows us to visualize what kind of problems we're trying to solve. What other examples can you give us which allow us to think as, let's say, people going into the workforce or early stage workforce in the technology world as to the kind of problems that we could solve, and maybe the kind of skills that we already have which we could apply to solve those problems?
So, see, we like to all our client conversations, we do come across a lot of these problems that we've been trying to solve through very old ways of problem solving, like conventional automation, etc. Now, for example, for a client that we were working, they had to solve for issues with their payments. right? And payments were made, they were made in advance of time. There was no consistency. If you were, if you were to take all that data and actually find what's really happening with using AI, it gave a lot of insights, in terms of, where are the probable issues and patterns, as I said before, like fraud, right? And then that becomes the base for you to really think that, oh, is that really what aligns to the way I want to do my business, and start correcting those, right? So as Professor JD said, I think using Gen AI as the base and then kind of building on that, and I think that's really what a lot of our people getting into the workforce should really focus on, right? Curiosity, creativity, thinking out of the box, trying to define the problem well, understanding the business and the domain. I think these are skills that are going to be important. Having and understanding the data as well. It's just not about domain, but how does data stack up? And once you have that, then you start thinking of applying AI and Gen AI to kind of solve for it.
So just to, as I pick up from both what you're saying and Anvesha is saying, so there is a certain degree of fear which we've not touched upon, but there is about what AI will do, and there is, as I can hear from all of you, actually, there is excitement. And I'm just wondering whether you can transmit that. I mean, how do you get people excited to the opportunity rather than being concerned about let's say, what AI could do to your jobs, or what AI could, how AI could append your, let's say, your organization and so on. So, Anvesha, can I start with you?
Yeah. I think the fear to some extent I feel is already fading away, which is a great part. Because like it or not, I think all of us have fully embraced AI or some part of it, right? Whether it's within Accenture, whether those are tools that we have which have made our lives tremendously easier. But at the same time, maybe if we were to even talk about entry-level assessments that we have, where AI have for sure made inroads, or very usual example of how each of us have really gotten an example of how we leverage ChatGPTs in our personal lives, right? So I don't think that's really going away. I think we have already gotten, we've kind of crossed that mountain, we've overcome it, and we understand now in terms of how do we make it work for us rather than figure out what it is going to do to my job. So yes, definitely AI is here to change the job dynamics, to really create disruptions, but really it is to create disruption in the workforce, in the way how it is, it's going to augment our jobs, not really take away our jobs. Which therefore means that, like Professor Desai mentioned, or even Shailesh mentioned, is that we need to know and therefore embrace AI to be able to come up with those solutions. And, to some extent, of course, not be very stereotypical in understanding and take a narrow view of what our business line is, but to really have a wider view, have that, design thinking and business acumen mindset in our, in our rear view. So that's really what is going to help.
Shailesh, how do you see the opportunity or the potential for excitement or creating excitement?
See, I think a technology like AI, if you want to embrace it, you need to touch and feel it, and that's really what ChatGPT did in 22, right? They just brought Gen AI to the hands of millions of people, and that was the biggest unlock. Going, and it was just not an iPhone moment. I think it was an unlock moment, and that kind of got people out of the fear that they were thinking, oh, is AI real? What can it do, etc., etc. But I think now the way I see it is a little different. Now that it's actually brought to you in your hands, there's a likelihood of everyone crossing their responsibility boundaries, and now that's the fear that we all have to kind of work towards. So we just bring responsibility and ethics, as a foundation now. Just not about what AI can do, but as a foundation, we're able to really look at AI and then use that back, in what you do. By the way, just quoting something, I read this on the internet. There's someone in Stanford who said that radiologists who use AI will replace radiologists who don't use AI.
Yeah.
And that's a real powerful statement to make, and that research should tell us, how do we embrace it and take it forward.
So, Shailesh, you are in, I mean, you work with Accenture. This is your job, so to speak, to be, let's say, embedded with what's going on, trying to stay abreast, like the quote you just, gave. Now, how does someone who is not necessarily frontline AI or frontline technology, but who could definitely be affected by the developments in the world of AI, how should they be looking at these changes around them in their own organizations, in their own peer groups, and so on?
I think I just tried to say that before, right? You need to get access to AI first. It's not about learning mathematics and statistics. Of course, for those who want to get deep into, sure, but you need to get to AI applications first. And for any non-techie, those who primarily work with Word, PPT, you just expose them to Microsoft Copilot. It just change the way they're able to do things. And I think that is going to be important, right? So I think once you give them an AI tool, they understand what it can do. And I don't think anyone has to go away from the core. So the radiologist doesn't need to be an AI geek. They need to focus on what their core job is, so that they're able to find the issues with what AI is giving them, right? Or training them for betterment, right? And that's what I think everyone has to look at AI as a plus one, not necessarily trying to become an AI geek, right? And not fear about it. So continue doing your job, build your expertise, and just take AI along with you and tread through.
Right, and let's come to the thinking approach and the additional skills that we've been sort of touching on along this discussion. And can I come back to you, Professor Desai? So, critical thinking is important, and using the right skills and thought processes combined will help you understand what problems are and then help you solve them. So, how are the students of today gearing up for this, and is what they're doing enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really tough one, Govind. It really, I think, depends upon the balance of how much you use Gen AI versus, how much time you spend in developing core skills. So as I mentioned in our classrooms, we've gone away from, we continue to teach the core, of course, but then perhaps about 10 to 15% of our course content is now, geared towards, the latest in terms of technologies, right? Our understanding is that, look, these are the tools that you're going to be using in the real world. We want to prep you for it. We want to prepare you for it. But at the same time, I think there is an understanding that if you want to be a good manager, managers take decisions under uncertainty, under incomplete information. The AI tools work when data is good, when data is like neatly cleaned. There's a certain fidelity to the data. That's when Gen AI models give you the right outputs. In the absence of that, what are you going to do, right? I mean, like that's really where human intuition, human intelligence comes in. I think there's an understanding of that, right? I mean, like I think, like I mentioned before, you increase your basket of choices that are generated by the tool, but at the end of the day, I think you need to have the ability to discern which choice is the best for you for the situation that you're in. Right. And I also just want to pick up on what Anvisha was saying earlier, right? I'm going to present a little bit of a doomsday scenario here, right? It's not all, some people are going to lose their jobs, right? I mean, I think that's the fundamental truth of technology. When email came in, a lot of postmen, I'm assuming, lost their jobs, right? I mean, like there were no more letters to send. Similarly, I think there is tasks that are repetitive, tasks that don't require a high level of skill, tasks that are broadly research based in the sense that you're just reading up on something and you're coming and like compiling that and summarizing that. All of those tasks, I think, are going to be in a bit of trouble, right? I mean, I think that's the reality that we live in. You just have to upskill yourself and be in a spot where you're a decision maker for you to be able to keep that thing going. Yeah.
Right, and let me pick up on the data point. We've talked about the AI, but the data which is going to produce good quality intelligence or insight, and then the AI which you apply on it also has to be good, which is the data. Anvisha, what's your sense there? I mean, when you're looking for people, what are the kind of data skills that you're looking for? How do you find the current, let's say, supply of talent in that space?
I think I'm going to take a step back and answer it in a way that once again, data and AI as a field together has made career choices more accessible and much more wider. Which means that, of course, while we go for our traditional BTech hiring schools, etc., but we are also looking at non-traditional, non-engineering backgrounds as well. In fact, we recently, we had tons of happy transformation stories from experienced people as well as new talent hires that we have taken, maybe coming from traditional data architecture background, but have been able to straddle and move into AI as well and build there and branch out and become prompt engineers or LLM experts. Similarly, you have had people from economics major moving into and learning through. So I'm going to talk about the learning parts as well, but we people moving through those learnings, through those cross skilling and upskilling, and making tremendous client impact into responsible AI domain. So the art of possible is really how creative you can get. And as Professor Desai mentioned, of course, yes, some of the repetitive tasks, if we do not upskill ourselves, is really going to be taken away by AI. But I'm a little optimist in that to say that AI, of course, we call it as artificial intelligence, but I feel there's inherently a lot of humanness attached to it. So which means that as long as we stay curious, as well as as long as we stay in the whole learning mode on a consistent basis, which is where we've already looked at future proofing our careers at Accenture, right, with 14 important data and AI skills, all very, very important, building deep skills in the data and Gen AI era. And the learning paths, the sandboxes, that's essentially what we are looking for people to continuously create that whole learning drip on. It's not going to be a pit stop time to time, but it's really a constant drip of learning, which is really going to allow you to imagine the career of your choice. You can stay definitely in data. You can, continue to have your domain expertise. It's not going to go away anywhere. But yes, of course, looking at what's next possible and not really, leaning into AI as becoming the driver, but really you being the driver and allowing AI to help you move forward.
Right, that's inspiring, Anvisha, even for someone like me, who is a non-engineer in this conversation, and many other such conversations. So, you mentioned several. If I were to pick some of those, the words that you used, you talked about adaptability and resilience and agility earlier, and ability, and now you talked about curiosity. Now, when you are looking at someone who is a potential entrant into your organization, or for such a role in maybe another organization in an AI skilled environment, or in an AI workforce, what are the 2 or 3 things that, let's say, stand out for you, or what you would look for, apart from everything else, which is, I'm assuming, like a common factor?
I think people first and foremost, anything how passionate are they on the subject, right? I think that if you're passionate about the topic, you inherently are going to demonstrate a lot of these, right? If you're passionate, you are going to be curious. If you're curious, you're definitely going to be learning. So it's all interrelated. So I think one common question that really helps us, and something that I ask myself when I self-reflect as well, is that what is that one thing that I've learned, and that I have learned today, or let's say for a candidate in the last 6 months, and what has really excited you? And I think most of the time we receive the answer and are able to gauge in that one question.
So, if I may be a little unfair, Anvisha, let me put that same question back to you and say, and I'm going to put this to our other 2 panelists as we close as well. So, what's the one thing that you've picked up in recent times that has excited you or motivated you in the context of what we're talking about today?
Yes, sure. So first and foremost, I think on a lighter note, I really found purpose and meaning into why I was forced to solve those reams and reams of algebraic polynomials in school. I see, where that has taken me today. So that's really helpful. And I'm able to explain that to my son as well. But aside from that, I think, when ChatGPT kind of, came in, there was a lot of fear. And very honestly, I started from a place of fear in terms of the ethics angle of it. But really moving on to really see how my prompts can be refined. And in general, to see, how we are able to kind of, go ahead and have that mindset to see where we can take away the repetitive task and to be able to apply more of these tools and technologies. That's been the greatest learning for me.
Okay, it's Shailesh, could you go next? It's the same question, and use that to sum up as well.
Yeah, no, I think for me personally, I've been actually contributing to how Gen AI can be brought to change the way you do data. Yeah, that's really what I do for my living, right? But the way I have been using Gen AI is to personally learn a lot about economics. I always had an interest, but I've been so much aligned to engineering that I've never looked at what it is. And now that my son is trying to learn about it, as like Anvisha said, I'm trying to use Gen AI to understand economics and kind of bring that back to him. But I think overall, what ChatGPT and Gemini's have done is they've just given you access to a lot of things. How you use it is up to you. If you want to disrupt something, that's the best place to start with. So go and take your control on ChatGPT and Gemini.
And plunge. Okay, Professor, last word.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you one thing that I did learn today and one thing that I did not do. Today I was part of a very interesting discussion on how do you measure sustainability of an entire organization using, and these were tools that somebody was showcasing using Gen AI, which I thought was a really nice thing to do. They were showcasing, how not just a firm, but also an industry and so on can sort of do that. The thing that I did not do was that, the organizer had asked me to put up a virtual background today. And I said, all of my panelists are going to look like Gen AI prompts. So I said, I'm going to be a little different and look like a human being. So I said, I'm going to stick with my office prompt, which is exactly what happened.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and an academic who's in sitting inside IIM Bangalore. So you should look like that as well. So anyway, thank you all. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you so much for joining me. And thank you for spotlighting what the AI skilled workforce really looks like. Upskilling isn't optional, it's foundational. And as you've heard, today's discussion has brought that home beautifully with those examples of what some of our panelists have been, or rather how they've been using AI in their own lives, right down to today or this morning. Up next, a panel that really goes under the hood of enterprise AI. I'm joined by Vashwati Ghosh, who's Managing Director and Generative AI Delivery Lead for EMEA markets at Accenture Advanced Technology Centers in India. She transformed numerous Fortune 500 companies and large conglomerates worldwide through generative AI, analytics, data, and cloud solutions. With a career spanning various industries, Vashwati has helped businesses tackle complex challenges by implementing cutting-edge AI solutions and collaborating with diverse teams to achieve outstanding results. Ruchi Soni also joins us. She's the Managing Director for Data and AI at Accenture Advanced Technology Centers in India. She is a data in the new evangelist, helping enterprises unlock their full potential of their data through future-ready multi-cloud architectures, all of which she will explain. A patented innovator, author, and external speaker, Ruchi is passionate about connecting people, platforms, and possibilities to reimagine what's possible with data. And finally, Saurabh Juneja, Managing Director and Lead for Data and AI at the Americas at Accenture Advanced Technology Centers in India. In his current role, he leads Accenture's data and AI and delivery and growth for the Americas as part of the Advanced Centers of Technology in India. He has about 25 years of experience and is an established leader in the data and AI domain, known for leading transformation programs for clients globally and his roles in practice building, business development, and solution architecture. Today, we will now explore what's needed beyond data science to scale AI, real-world lessons from AI failures and course corrections, and how organizations are institutionalizing responsible AI. So today we shall talk about, or now we shall talk about driving AI at scale from learning to real-world impact. So thank you all, Vashwati, Ruchi, and Saurabh. So I'm going to ask each of you to speak for a couple of minutes to lay the foundation, so to speak, on how you see this theme of driving AI at scale and from learning to real-world impact. I'm going to ask you for illustrations and examples as we go along, but maybe the best, I think, would be that each of you speak for about 2 minutes, and Vashwati, you could go first.
Thank you, Govind. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for listening to us through the week. And let me start giving a different perspective of AI when it is adopted at scale. So we all have, been hearing in the first half of this week that how AI is being the strategic enabler. The AI, Gen AI, and data have been the strategic enabler to bring in reinvention across industries, and how the 5 imperatives recipe that we have is helping the company scale. But now, if I have to look at that, once the companies are reinvented, when there is scale adopted, how does that look like? What are the traits can you identify? I would say 3 things which I would like to put across here. So one is that the first topic is human AI collaboration. That is very well entrenched in those kind of organizations where we see everyday AI, right, is being adopted. Like in the previous session, also Suresh alluded to that to some extent, that everybody in the organization, each persona, okay, are using AI in their day-to-day tasks. And as a company, we are seeing AI being used or adopted across 3 lenses, right? One is using AI for customers and clients, that we obviously do. The second one is using AI for yourself, which is to bring efficiency in your day-to-day work that we do, like meeting notes or the use of co-pilots, which in the previous sessions also many of us spoke about. And the third one is that how we are transforming our organization using AI, like reinventing the corporate functions, running our HR programs differently, running our finance programs differently, and so on and so forth. So when we see that it's happening, so if I just take even the data engineer for that example, how the person now changes, if he has starts to use or convert, say, a code from, say, SAS to Python, how easily that person can do it today, right? Instead of spending weeks, which he would have done, even 2 years back, he's now doing it in hours, maybe, and that too with the QC done. So that's the kind of efficiency we are seeing for the engineers and the developers, but not just them. Imagine the salesperson who has to respond to, a big RFP, and there will be 200, 300 pages of documents have to be written with a lot of research and within the company's collaterals already done, and then summarizing all the results nicely to respond to the RFP meaningfully. That work is now 80 to 90% efficient if we are using AI and the Gen AI agents, right? So that's how their life has changed. Yeah, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the first trait. The second trait, which I would like to call about, is that these companies are driving consistent and predictable outcomes when delivering and deploying AI solutions at scale, and that is happening through the operational rigor, which is coming through the entire life cycle development of building these solutions, which we in technical terms call MLOps, data ops, or DevOps, for example. Right, so they have strong practices around these processes, which even which brings the structured and the best practice approach all clubbed together, having the right frameworks in place, having built in right governance into this, and how the design, the experimentation, the build, as well as the deployment and post deployment, all the entire life cycle, how it is very well managed, consistently and giving predictable outcomes. That's the second. And the third one is, okay, while we are adopting AI at scale in the organization, it is also our chance to give back, right? The developers community who have, used certain, I would say, built certain as utilities around using AI, and they believe, for example, it can be a, say, email writer, or it can be as a document extraction. Now, how you're giving back into the repository of the digital core, through which it can be then reused for multiple other practices or by multiple other people. So, the reusability through the asset creation or the accelerators creation, that's the point which I was trying to make up with. This is the third one. So, with these three things, these are very distinct characteristics you could see and differentiate, that the companies who are using AI at scale are doing this very nicely and fluidly versus the others who are still catching up.
Vashpati, when we talk about real world impact, and you worked in many organizations, and in past conversations through this week, we've been hearing about, let's say, industries like life sciences, which have been earlier adopters, banking and finance, of course. How are you seeing this when you talk about, let's say, the more mature users of AI? What are those companies like typically, or sectors, or is there no such underpinning?
I would say no. In across industries, I would say I've seen this. Yeah, life sciences, I would also agree that's probably one of the forefront. But beyond that, banking, yes, banking industries are also well entrenched to some extent. And the other, even in Accenture, I would say that we are adopting in all, and we also use AI at scale, right? So with the services companies, and some of the high tech companies are also quite well advanced.
Okay, and I'm going to come back to the arc the arc, if we can trace it from learning to real world impact in a moment. Ruchi, it's over to you.
Sure. Hi everyone. Thank you, Govind, and it's great to be here. So for me, this theme actually highlights the evolution of AI from, let's say, an experimentation phase to now we are talking about a full scale implementation, and this should be followed by we should have some measurable outcome value that should come in from it. Now, scaling AI, it means operationalizing models across the enterprise. I'll give an example. One of our retail clients, they actually use AI to dynamically optimize inventory in real time. Now, a lot of organizations actually, what we have seen is they start with small scale initiatives that could be a POC or some small automations, and then they eventually expand. For example, one of our financial client, they implemented NLP models They created customer service chatbots, and they first tested it in a controlled environment. And once everything was fine, then they actually scaled the solution to across digital channels, and eventually it handled millions of customers. So to be short, ultimate, the goal is to generate business value. It can be through cost savings, it can be through productivity improvements or enhanced customer experience. So that's my way of looking at this theme.
Right. And when you look at some of the companies that you worked with, Ruchi, are you able to say that, here is a company that is going to move fast from the experimentation to full-scale implementation? Of course, there is a cost for not moving fast, but we can discuss that later. But are you able to say that or able to see that? And if you see it, are you able to course correct for them?
So again, a very interesting question. And as Vaswati said, it's across companies. So it's not, one particular industry that we talk about. But so there are a couple of things that I would say. And I think it is also related to an adoption lag. See, a lot of clients wants to use it, but eventually it goes to the way, user perceive it. So it also depends upon, there can be a human, cultural, or organization barriers, because of which, even though, I've seen clients wants to move to it, they want to take a jump, but all those things comes into play. So it's across, organizations are heading there, so they are taking those steps, but we are still, trying to reach there, is what I would say.
Right. And I'm going to come back to that. Saurabh, it's over to you.
Yeah, thanks, and good afternoon, everyone. Govind doing to it. So again, a very interesting topic, and great to hear the thoughts from the fellow panelists. I'll keep it very brief, and we'll open for more discussion. I'll just talk about some principles of some clients and how they approach, in terms of clients or enterprises who have been able to scale AI versus who probably are still sitting on the fence and struggling to scale AI. It's a very subtle difference, but if you start peeling the surface, more insights will come. So I've tried to encapsulate that in a statement which says something like, a promise of value to realization of value. So it's a loaded statement. Typically, if you go into any organization, the decision making and excitement starts from the board level. Board and CXOs are hearing about Gen AI. They've been asking the CIOs, the CDOs, that what are we doing about it? How can we benefit from it? So it's very easy to jump to certain decisions. Yes, speed is of importance and essence, but the entire pitch to get sponsorship is focused on promise of value, and probably less focused on realization of value. Clients or enterprises who probably are seeing early success start with that realization of value pitch rather than promise of value pitch. So I'll pause here, but there's something that we are seeing across. There are cultural aspects and foundational aspects that make up that. But for me, that stands out. The statement of promise versus realization of value.
Saurabh, we talked about the the fear versus excitement as you adopt and adapt in this new world. And when you encounter organizations, so I'm assuming at the top deck there is desire. Whether or not that desire is to take a big bet or go POC by POC and so on. On the other hand, you have, let's say, the talent, the young technology workforce in the company. Quite likely they're raring to go and they want to do things. I don't know, what's your experience here? I mean, how you look at an organization and the various constituents of it responding to this change?
Yeah, so I think, ultimately we have to understand this entire Gen AI agentic space is very, very transformational in nature. And for any transformation to take shape and scale and succeed, there are different tiles that need to come together. What you spoke about are the various tiles that make up the full puzzle to be solved. Board sponsorship, CXO sponsorship is one aspect of the puzzle and tiles, and then talent obviously is big aspect of that puzzle and making up the tiles together. So both are important. There is no either or here, Govind. It's both are important. There are more tiles, but yes, since you asked about these two tiles, excitement on a board level, sponsor level, and excitement at talent level, both are important to kind of handshake and work together. Yeah.
Right, and I'm guessing in all of this, and Vashwati, if I can come to you, speed is very critical. I mean, I'm assuming this is the X factor that we've not really talked about, but we've obviously referred to it elsewhere. So, how do you define speed in this? I mean, one way to, of course, define it is to say, okay, my competitor is, doing X, Y, Z, and therefore we need to use AI to do this. But if you want to build or generate internal speed to move from learning to impact quickly, what do you do?
Oh, that's a very good question. Yes. So it first of all, it depends on whether as a company you want to be the first runners, or you want to take a step back and let others go first and you learn from them and then you jump, right? So there are two approaches to this. So companies who are at the forefront, right? There the some of the key traits for them will be agility, the organization wide agility and the ability to quickly change directions and driven from the top. And like for us, when the GenAI wave came maybe 2 years back, right? All the employees throughout the organization, we had mandatory learning on GenAI right up to the CEO level from the freshers, right? Everybody went through that training at different levels, right? Based on the roles, based on the designations, and based on the work that we handle in each and every day. For practitioners, developers, it is much more intense. But for us, obviously, when even for the other leaders who are non-core AI or Gen AI practices, people like in the consulting or strategy, they also had to go through all of this, right? And these programs were created very very fast, and we very well in the initial stage itself we understood that okay, unless we let the common understanding of AI and Gen AI embedded quickly, we will not be able to take the right decisions henceforth. So that's one way, right, of doing it. And additionally, while we were doing this understanding learning training, at the same time we were also upgrading in terms of our infrastructure, understanding of getting the tools, acquiring the tools and the platforms which are required for Gen AI, and creating the point of views and the architectures for future. And then there will be some companies who would I just take one of our type of customer segments, right, who would be the traditional utilities companies, right?
Mhm.
They, for them, if they want to change anything, and they are heavily invested on capital equipments, right, that is not very changeable overnight, right? Now if I say that I will make all my wind turbines intelligent overnight, it will not happen, right? So then they will have to so watch that how in their industry how AI is relevant. Obviously it is relevant for them, the field force engineers, their life has come dramatically changed, right? And there might be some but while we do so, again we'll have to see that the sensors, the machines which are sitting at the edge, or in these machines, are they equipped with AI intelligence? And then they have to slowly upgrade into, because their upgradation to AI is not just the knowledge, it's also about the physical equipment that will be able to handle this new type of data. So there it will be a little slower. So it all depends on also the business imperatives and the perspective of which industry they are in, how fast the agility or the I would say allows, agility is allowed by the business to do so. Obviously, even if in the both cases, I'm assuming the leadership drive was always there
Yeah.
equally well.
No, and I mean, I can say from some examples that I know that in the same company, things could change with leadership. I mean, you may have
Yeah.
one kind of
Yeah.
leadership which is extremely technology savvy, and
Mm.
that person moves on or retires, and the successor is not as technology savvy, and now you're facing this whole AI challenge at that time. And I mean, and there are some very interesting examples, I think. Ruchi, if I were to come back to you, yeah, you wanted to say
Mhm.
something, Vashpati?
No, no, I just wanted to stay away from those examples.
You want to stay away from that, okay? Ruchi, experimenting to full scale implementation.
Yeah.
How are you seeing some of the failures? As in, what goes wrong? And I mean, I know this is again time bound, right? You can't keep experimenting, and how many experiments can you run, because you've got to start taking bigger leaps and so on. But even at this point, what are the kind of mistakes people are making?
So I think Vaspati already called out. You already also mentioned. So there are different aspects. One is business aspects. Second is technical aspects. Let's take example of a business, and I'll relate it to one of the clients. It was a manufacturing client, and we kind of delivered a very very good. The project for them. Now I'll turn it to what went well for them, right? So in terms of business, like Vaspati said, and like you also said, Govind, if business has a very clearly defined problem, it is important. So for them, we business, they never called it as a generic AI initiative, right? So they called it as something with a very focused goal. They very clearly mentioned that we want to reduce downtime by X percentage. So that was the call out that was made. Second, again, there are cross-functional teams. What I've seen is that the teams don't talk to each other. So that's very, very important for the success of a project. Let's say we have a data scientist, we have a data engineer. Now, data engineer is responsible for pushing the data, right? Making sure that all the checks and balances are in place. That data will be used for modeling. So that's another thing which is important. Then I think in terms of POCs, what I've seen is rather than doing something as a big bang, it's better to do it in small, give results to business. So fast iteration, real world testing is important. So if we follow, I think all these things, and then definitely our trainings, right? So the people that we train having the right skills in the team, like Vaspati called out ML ops, Saurabh mentioned business is a different tile, and technology, and both of them have to bring together. I think those are the things through which we can reduce the gap, and we can make sure that things start working quickly. If go in, yeah.
Okay, Saurabh, any red flags that either companies could make, or young people could get excited about something that's really cutting edge, but that may not be so relevant even in this newer world of AI. Things that people should watch out for.
Yeah, so good and bad, right? A lot of clients have tasted early success, but they're not able to scale. And what kind of pulls them back is the underlying foundation. I know through the week and the previous session, Professor JD and Salvesh and Vesha also spoke about the foundation, the data foundation. It's that's so critical for a lot of our use cases to be enabled. Clients get excited with early success for use cases, but since over the years they've not really paid too much of attention of building a solid foundation, they struggle. So we are seeing across the spectrum the clients or organizations that do well with Gen AI, how well they've invested and stitched together a good foundation, and clients which struggle because they've not invested properly in the data foundation. So that really stands out, the importance and the edge that clients get from building a solid foundation versus who have not. Yeah, so that's a big red flag for me. If I'm talking to an organization, to a client who are excited to start some use cases, the first and foremost question is how well thought through is the data strategy.
Got it. Vashwati, if I can come back to you, as a young person or a young engineer who is getting into this world, how do I right size, or I don't know, I think right size is the right word, my own learning capability, and how do I, pull together everything that this world is really asking for? Because it's not the same thing as a decade ago when I could say, okay, here's my BTech degree, and here I am at your doorstep. So what is it that you're looking for? Because people have to understand, and I'm sure they do, that the role that they will be playing is cutting edge, as in they're going to be at the forefront of taking that organization to some other place which it has never been, thanks to AI.
Right. So, first and foremost, some of the fundamentals of the human traits, or the talent traits have not changed, right? When I look for a person to hire in the team, first of all, I look at the attitude to learn, the attitude for lateral thinking, and the ability to clearly communicate the ideas, and ability to think beyond the boundaries of the traditional textbooks, which are getting less relevance day and day as we go in this world. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the fundamentals should be right. I think in some of the previous sessions also people spoke about the same thing. The fundamentals should be right. The mathematical or economics or statistical or econometrics concepts, whichever that is, or computer science, that concept, whichever the person is specialized in, that basic concept should be right. That if you claim that, okay, I'm a computer science specialist, and when probed further, then there are gaps in the fundamentals, then that's a problem, right? So if you have understood or gained mastery in one subject well, you can pick up others if you are willing to in that field. And in the technology in AI is changing so fast, there will not be any textbook which is going to be relevant for 2 years at least. If I see, even if I start the course now, in next 2 years when I'm out of the college, that will most likely not be relevant. Right. So that's another thing. And the third thing is, one programming language understanding is still required, whether it is Python, whether it is something else. But and Python is more or less the universally accepted one these days, because and I'm not saying that the person has to be doing coding all the time in the era of Gen AI and agents, but at least that understanding and the ability to tweak some of the solutions, the low code no code solutions, to make it fit for their purpose. That for that understanding, any conceptual level of knowledge for, or any and I would say the basic level of knowledge of coding is also required. So those are the three things, and problem solving attitude is the other thing, beyond this.
Yeah. And which brings me to the point, and let me bring you in, both Ruchi and Saurabh. So if I were to flip this approach around and say, within a company, how do I use young people who are clearly, let's say, adapting and adopting faster, at least theoretically, the world of AI? How do I use them to actually, scale up faster, to go from learning to actual implementation faster than I am today?
Yeah, let me go first. Yeah. So Govind, we all have faced it. I personally definitely have something called the blank page syndrome, or a black screen syndrome, where we're all excited, we're all geared up, but we kind of stall where to start. And that's probably is happening across most organizations, talent included. So we have engineers who probably want to do something, and a lot of our clients have engineers who are gearing up. They have all the tools, set up, but they're not able to start their creative engine. Is something called, black page syndrome. And the way we recommend, the way we suggest to overcome that is through some startup kits. Accenture themselves are launching and investing big time into the startup kits through AI Refinery and whatever else we are building and launching in the market. So that essentially gives all the developers, all the business users, the starter kits and the frameworks to kind of not suffer from black page syndrome and get going using the frameworks and getting the creative juices out. So that's what I will do, and recommend the clients who are kind of stuck in there.
Okay, Ruchi?
Sure. So two-step is what I would suggest. One is a mindset change, and then it's all about skills. When we say mindset change, what I've seen a lot of new joiners, etc., they bring a lot of energy, right? They're very, very fresh, a lot of motivation they have. But the thought process, I think we are talking about people who are not just building pipelines, but we're talking about people who are strategic enablers of intelligence, right? So it's all about thinking like product teams, adaptability, continuous learning, etc. So in terms of mindset, I think all of those things are important. In terms of skills, it's all about the cloud native technologies. Vaspati already called out few skills which are important. I think because with all these restrictions, right, GDPR, etc., data lineage, access control, etc., is very, very important. MLOps, data ops is something which is important. So, and then bringing it as a package and using what organization gives you. Saurabh already called out AI Refinery and other packages. I think that's the way we should proceed forward to go with here.
Right. So we're heading to the close. So I'm going to ask each of you to, talk about the one thing or one example which signifies or exemplifies what real world impact is, which helps others understand. So you say, okay, I want to get into AI because this is the real world impact that it's having, and I want to be part of that. So that's my question. And let me begin with you, Saurabh, and go backwards.
Yeah, so I think the example that,
and what's influenced you? I mean, you can talk about what influenced you in
yeah. So I have all the three apps. I think in previous panel, the panelists were focused more on a single app, or even the professor was kind of talking about that if you give a business case, clients already have, or the students already have examples or answers ready. I have all the three apps, the three famous apps on my phone. So I do compare notes, between the three apps and how well they respond to my questions and my prompts. But coming back to the inspiration for fellow engineers who are looking forward to work in this area, build a career in this area, I think this is a land of opportunity. We just like start scratching the surface now, whether it's through space research or life sciences research or operational rigor. There's so many use cases of reinvention that we'll continue to see in coming months and years. And we all just seeing the very start of that revolution, if I may use the word, for the years to be in this area. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Saurabh. Ruchi, the example to you that means the most when we're talking about real world impact.
Yeah, so Saurabh already spoke about the applications. I also use them, and it's very easy to summarize things. So it actually saves a lot of our time. Then there is a business impact. I already spoke about some of the client examples. There are many. There are many, like we have a global manufacturing company. It reduced unplanned downtime using AI to predict failures, and then the cool generation that we are talking about, right? All those Instagrammers, etc. So they in that area also have seen AI. AI brings a lot of benefits. We talk about content creation, we talk about personalization, cost efficiency, gains, etc. So I think all of those. So AI is an area, as Saurabh said, it's something which has just started. There are so many opportunities that are there, and it's all about tapping them. And we are there to help you, is what we will say, Govind.
Okay, Vashpati, last word, driving AI at scale from learning to real world impact. What's the example that resonates with you the most?
I would say it's the ultimately the problem solving and the solution for complex business problems where actually people can get value, right? So that has stuck me even as we see the evolution of AI from the days of data analysis, data analytics to data science to AI to ML, now Gen AI agents, everything, right? In this entire world evolution journey, one thing that has always stuck along is that how you're solving complex business problems by dialoguing with data, by extracting the meaning from data, and finally impacting the business decisions which are going to drive the results. And after leading multiple such global programs for helping our clients in getting the value from using data and AI in their businesses, I really get the kick. And even today, by getting into delivering multiple first of a kind complex solutions, because this is one industry where the newness or the freshness is always alive, and we still keep on learning, as Senthil also mentioned, right? Every Monday learning new thing which has come, right? And we'll
Because
have to
every
get it.
Monday it's going to be a new thing, and you have no choice but to learn and be fresh and curious and agile, and keep having that ability to see what's happening, look at the horizon, and keep staying geared, primed, and ready for this new world. So thank you all. It's been lovely talking to you, and thank you also for peeling back the curtain on scaling AI, as we've been talking about, from ML ops to navigating failure. This session was, I would think, a masterclass in real world AI enablement. So as we close out the first 4 days of Data and AI Week, let's take a moment to reflect on the journey so far. From day one, we've understood how AI has moved and is moving from automation to true autonomy, and how agentic AI is shaping enterprise strategy. On day two, we saw how Gen AI is being put to work across industries from education to retail, and how responsible AI is key to sustainable transformation. Day three took us into the mechanics of scaling AI, spotlighting the importance of data readiness, ML ops, and the power of continuous learning. And today, on day four, we brought it all back to people, discussing the critical skills, the mindsets, and the upskilling frameworks that will define the AI-powered workforce of the future, or for that matter, the present. Thank you for being part of this evolving conversation, and for bringing your energy and your questions and your desires across every session that I've been part of. I've truly enjoyed this. Tomorrow is our grand finale and day 5 of the Accenture Data and AI Week, where you will learn about the careers in data and AI at Accenture, whether you're looking to pivot, grow, or innovate. It's a day full of possibilities. So watch this event live on Accenture in India's Facebook channel at 11 a.m. and thus cap off an incredible week. A big thank you to everyone. See you soon again.